let's take a look at my virtual machines and how they're set up. Just to show you what repos are necessary. So this is a Rev 4.1 environment. For the Rev Manager, it's got all the standard Rev Manager repositories enabled, right? Nothing special there. And then likewise on the hypervisors, these are RHEL hypervisors rather than Rev H. So just a standard RHEL channel and the required channel for the Rev hypervisor bit. And same for the secondary hypervisor, right? So no magic there. We do not have the Open vSwitch components installed anywhere. So this is going to install things and configure it for us from scratch. Nope. Look at that. Typos. Okay, Open vSwitch, I guess, gets pulled in as part of the hypervisor install, but nothing is configured. Services are not running or anything like that. Moving on to the actual Ansible playbook and kind of running through what it will look like. All right, so I've got two plays that are going to run in this playbook. The first one is going to run on the group engine, which you can imagine equates to my Rev Manager. What it's going to do is I've defined a variable with whatever the firewall D zone is. By default, it's public on Rev Manager. I'm going to install this package, Overt Provider OVN, make sure the service is started, restart Firewall D, because as part of installing this service, it creates a Firewall D service so that I can later on say Firewall D enable that Overt Provider OVN service. If I didn't restart Firewall D before doing that, this part would fail because it has to reread what available services are there. And then additionally, there are two other ports that I have to open up in Firewall D on Rev Manager for the bits that live on the hypervisor to be able to communicate, right? And then what we do in the last bit on the Rev Manager is using the OVN southbound and northbound database control commands. Tell them to listen on their respective ports for connection. After that has been configured on the Rev Manager, we move on to the hypervisors. Same thing, I've defined a variable with the Rev Manager IP. We install a package, and then we enable the service, and I guess good thing for us, as part of this enablement, the Rev engineering team has extended the VDSM tooling to configure any necessary bits on the back end for you. So the last bit is running this VDSM tool command, configuring OVN, pointing it to RevM as the controller, and then its local IP that it gathers through the Ansible FACT as the tunnel interface that it's going to use to tunnel the traffic back and forth. So without further ado, let's go ahead and run this playbook. And cross our fingers. It's pretty quick to run. As you saw, it's only installing like a single package on each group of hosts and then restarting some services. And all of my repos are actually hosted locally to my laptop too, so things should download and install relatively quickly. It's not a requirement to have the OVN controller live on RevM. As you can imagine, there might be some use cases where you might want to have that off the RevM server because additional load or anything like that. But for this demo, just install the RevM or the OVN controller directly on RevM. So everything is good to go. If we do an RPM QA now on Rev Manager, we see a bunch of services or RPMs that have been installed. Run some commands just to see that Open vSwitch itself is configured. This is the northbound database querying. There's nothing in there right now. Southbound database, we see the two tunnels defined, right? So each of the chassis corresponds to a hypervisor. Each one has its IP defined in there, which was from that VDSM tool command that got configured. Moving on to the hypervisors. That previous command that failed now shows us that there is a tunnel. Its peer is hypervisor 2, right? So vert 1 is 11, vert 2 is 12, and then we have our integration bridge where the virtual machine's VNIC is going to be attached. Okay, so that's all it takes to set it up from like a, installing bits and configuring things point of view.